All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a joint committee session of our Planning, Housing, and Economic Development and Health and Human Services committees to discuss Bill 622, Recreation, Montgomery County Sports Commission established. Welcome. We have representatives here from our Office of Legislative Oversight, the Department of Recreation, and I want to thank Ms. Wellens, who has been lead staff in helping to get us to this point. So let me tee this up and provide a little bit of context and background, and then we'll dive into the particulars of the bill and likely push forward some amendments to make it even better than it is right now. But as all of you are aware, I had the honor and privilege of serving for 12 years as the director of the Recreation Department. And in such time, the Department of Recreation carries out the largest basketball program in Montgomery County, and we have over 38 recreation facilities that the department is responsible for managing, and a number of camps and programs and services. And what I noticed over those 12 years, anecdotally mostly, was that there was a discrepancy in the amount of youth sports participation that often overlaid with economically disadvantaged communities. And I requested that the Office of Legislative Oversight conduct an analysis, which Ms. Carizosa did magnificently. And what that report did was confirm what we knew anecdotally to be true, which is that there are significant geographic regions within the county where there is significantly less youth sports participation than in more affluent areas of the county. So this is absolutely a equity issue. And the disparities are even more sparse when you include gender with regards to overall youth sports participation as well. And the barriers, as were noted in the report, include things like challenges being able to pay the fees associated with program participation or pay for the equipment associated with program participation. Barriers also included finding it difficulty identifying volunteer coaches. And the fact that over time, our sports community has evolved into a number of select clubs and organizations that absolutely do fantastic work. Several of my kids participate in those programs, but it's difficult to access them for too many youth in our community. And another barrier issue is transportation. Literally getting to and from practices and let alone games. And so the rec department has been working hard to fill this space for a number of years now. Soccer for Change is one of the better examples in the last couple of years. And what we found through those programs is that when you build it, youth will come. But overlaying all of this, in my opinion, is the fact, and it is a fact, that when you add up all of the participants at various generations and genders across our entire community, sports participation is probably the largest participatory activity by a long shot. However, there's no organizing group or entity that is helping to advocate for, that is helping to organize, that is helping to facilitate conversations within the sports community to better inform us as policymakers on capital changes or potential operating budget options or opportunities that are out there, and then finally seeing what more we can do to go back to what many of our families have been asking for quite some time, which is the identification of more recreational opportunities, less select or elite or tournaments, but just an opportunity for youth to be able to come out and play in an organized fashion, where they're exposed to a caring adult who helps mentor them in a variety of different ways. So that is the background and context for what is before us today, which is the establishment of what is currently being called a Montgomery County Sports Commission. Now, we receive very compelling testimony throughout our session on this, and so I think there are several decision points for us to consider today, and these are enumerated in the packet, but I will articulate at least some of them now. One is just the very name of the Sports Commission. I think there was a reasonable suggestion to look at calling it an advisory body, the Montgomery County Sports Advisory Committee, as opposed to commission, because commission, the corresponding commissions among boards and commissions more often than not are compensated and rises to somewhat of a slightly different level. And this was always intended to be advisory in nature. And the makeup, the 23 is a very large number. The reason we had chosen a large number was because we did not want to specify which sports categories, because once you go down that rabbit hole, somebody's going to feel left out. And so we wanted to create it as broad an opportunity as possible for people to be able to participate. But I think there's some wiggle room there. 23 is a large number. Maybe something like 17 would make sense. But keeping it large enough that we've got enough folks who express an interest and would be able to apply. And then lastly for now, and then I'll turn it over to Chairman Reamer to see if he wants to make any opening comments or any of my colleagues. I do think that there should be government agencies represented on the commission as the largest organizers or property owners of the fields and gyms in the county. So the Communities for Public Facilities, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the Department of Recreation, who will help oversee the entire process, but also should probably have a seat at the table in some capacity. I think MCPS should also, whether it's their athletic director or somebody from the athletic director's office, and probably Montgomery College as well, because as a large property owner of athletic fields in our community. And then finally, likely somebody representing overall our municipalities, because the city of Rockville, the city of Tacoma Park, the city of Gaithersburg each have very robust sports-based programs that they manage themselves. And I think we would benefit from hearing their voice in this space. So that is long-winded, but I wanted to establish the context for the conversation before us, and I'll turn it over to Chairman Reber, my co-chair today, to see if he has any other questions, thoughts, comments as we continue this discussion.
Thank you, Chair Albornoz. I really appreciate your comments, and I have really appreciated your focus on these issues in your years here at the council and in proceeding, and you're making a great and very positive impact, and thank you for that. I don't have a whole lot to add to your excellent comments, but just to say in a very general way, I want to see this county rebuild recreational sports. And I actually heard that at one point the county rec department, many, many years ago, did run big recreational youth sports programs in a lot of different sports. And over time, decades ago, that the county backed out of doing that. And I think we need to reestablish that. You know, that may not be the specific objective of this commission, but I think the point is having a table where people who are involved in youth sports and can bring issues to the fore can help us identify opportunities to improve the quality of opportunities in the county will be very, very helpful. Just as an example, do we have enough baseball fields in the county? We've talked a lot about soccer fields. What's the shortage of soccer fields? What's the shortage of baseball fields? Emerging sports like pickleball. How are we meeting those needs? These are things where I think we really need a strategic plan, an overall strategic plan for the county. And I think this commission can really help envision a lot of those needs and help the council to know how to prioritize resources and how to be effective in the work that we do here. And I think that's ultimately, going to be very impactful. We'll have a group of advisors to the county government who will present opportunities. In my time here, I've seen so much enthusiasm among council members to contribute resources to this area, and I think we just would benefit so much from having the wisdom and of those who are on the ground actively building these opportunities, giving us suggestions about what to do. So enthusiastic about the bill. I agree with your comments about specific potential changes in some of those institutes or institutions that could be at the table. I think having a fields expert always there's always going to be questions about fields. So possibly both parks and fields. The MCPS, as you mentioned, the athletics director, maybe the college. There are a number of organizations that are just so involved that they should always be there, perhaps non-voting role, but they should always be there to help facilitate the conversation. So Thank you very much. I'm really excited about this bill.
Thank you. The last two things I'll know. I'll turn over to Councilmember Rice, and then I'll make those 2 points. Okay. So just 2 other points I forgot to mention. There is a Parks and Recreation Advisory Group, which is important. This is in no way intended to supplant or take over. I participated in many of those meetings for 12 years, and it's an incredibly important group that does incredibly important work. Sports was a component of often the discussions that we had, but it was never intended to be the focal point. And I think it's important that we have a separate entity that focuses on that. And in addition to providing an advisory function, this group will also be charged with helping to develop a report on an annual basis on where things stand in terms of overall youth sports participation. And there will be an important ceremonial aspect of this. This group will also help facilitate and recognize the Montgomery County sports teams that have received either a state championship or athletes that have participated in the Olympics or even national champions, which we have here as well. This will be the body that helps track that and organizes 1 or 2 events each year that my colleagues and I and other policymakers will have the opportunity to participate in to recognize those accomplishments. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Chair. While I don't have a specific recommendation for language, because I think that we all agree with this notion, I think it'll be important for us to make sure that the success of what we've seen with the Department of Recreation in targeting sports that are also ones where we see the greatest disparities in participation, both from gender as well as ethnicity, are going to be incredibly important for us to focus on as well. I lament every time I go to a golf course in, the nation, not just here, and I'm the only black person that's on the course. And it says something because when I look at our Latinx population, a lot of our Asian population as well, while they're represented a lot of times in certain aspects, the reality is that we still don't see as much as we should based on the reflections of our community. And there is something better that we can do, and it's akin to, and I'll always keep talking about it because it's just phenomenal, but it reflects the commitment of the Department of Recreation with its CHILL program and with its skateboarding program. Both programs have been significant, and we've actually seen strides to where we saw the first African-American participate in the Olympics, Najee Harrison coming from California, who competed in skateboarding in the past Olympics, in the first time they've had it. The success stories are there and can be had, but there's got to be a commitment. And so it's my hope that this commission is not just one that's pushing forth our generic sports, but also making sure that we're highlighting to those communities that don't always get to see these types of sports and them in those sports, that we're reaching out to them and engaging and involving the community as the Department of Recreation has done so successfully before. So just wanted to put that out there. I don't think it's important for us to change any of the language. I trust the commitment of the Department of Recreation. I would just like to recommend that as we consider, and again, I'm not asking for an amendment or anything like that, but that we do have our revenue authority, just as you were saying about folks who own property. Our revenue authority owns 9 golf courses in Montgomery County. It's one of the largest public land acquisitions for golf courses in the nation. And so from that perspective, certainly something that warrants us at least engaging with them, if not having a member that's on. So just put those recommendations out there. Thank you, Mr. President.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Councilmember Friedson, followed by Councilmember Jawando.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Council President. We've been talking about this for a while. I know this has been a long time interest of yours, harnessing your positive youth development background and then your Department of Recreation background and now your council role. And so I appreciate the fact that we're here at this moment. And I think it certainly is timely given everything that we've seen with the pandemic and what taking sports away from young people has meant, and how missed it was, and the challenge of coming back for some families. It's a lot harder than for others. That we talk about learning loss, but there's opportunity losses beyond the classroom that are hard to recover, and we have a lot of work to do in that regard. And I think that really highlights many of the things that Councilmember Rice was noting as well. Appreciate the work that we have done, and Chair Reamer noted to increase facilities. We know that we have a lack of adequate public facilities for these activities based on the demand. And certainly the current rec department, the prior leadership in the rec department, the parks department, everybody, CUP can understand and appreciate that. And so I think that there is an opportunity to look at both participation and also facilities, and then access to those facilities, because there are some legacy challenges that we have to work through as well on that. We have to be really thoughtful in the way that we do it. And I will say I can't tell you enough how many times, first of all, I have been to Columbia for my nephew's lacrosse games, because we don't have the type of facilities here for the all-day lacrosse leagues and multiple fields like they have built there, and the number of families that ask me why not. And I talk about the limited land that we have and some of the other challenges, but we have to work through those issues and figure out how we can provide those opportunities, because families desperately are looking for them. And then the last thing that I will note, and I think I appreciate the participation, and revenue authority is a really important piece. I know Chair Albernaz, Council President, was talking about the government entities, and I think revenue authority should be part of it, parks should be part of it, rec should be part of it. I mean, there are a number of folks, whether it's ex officio or not, we can work through. But I will note, related to this and the recognitions that you noted of state champions, I just wanted to note on June 28th at 1 o'clock between morning and afternoon session, the Churchill lacrosse team will be here, who just won state championship, the first lacrosse state championship in Montgomery County Public School history. My old lacrosse coach, who's still the current lacrosse coach, will be here with that team. I was proud to have won the first regional championship at Churchill way back when, and certainly Montgomery County Public School lacrosse has come a long way since. I just want to invite colleagues to join for that, but also these types of recognitions to have a more formalized and institutional role, where individual council members are not kind of picking and choosing how these recognitions happen, but we have a process for how we recognize the excellence in our community. I think will be really a positive aspect of that. But in the meantime, we'll see Churchill on the 28th, and hope colleagues will join us. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Joando.
Absolutely. Always exciting when we have state champions in Montgomery County. Also, just want to thank you, Council President, for your leadership on this. As you and I know, I think one of the first times we met was playing basketball, and when our knees were better. And this is really important. It's important for our young people, important for equity, it's important for the work we all do. It's part of the quality of life of Montgomery County. And to the point that was made, I was just talking with someone yesterday about how our ice rink facility is like the best in the region, like everyone comes here from everywhere. And obviously the soccerplex is another destination. There are other areas where I think we can build out and add to that, and where there are deserts of sorts. And so I appreciate the comments by my colleagues in that regard. And I wanted to ask, while I am pretty agnostic on the membership, I lean towards larger, so you are inclusive. I think this will be a fairly collegial group. And on the naming, I think I'm fine there either. I go with the will of the body. But I do think, because all of us raise this and it's such an important issue, if there's an opening or willingness to add some language around this availability and access to fields and facilities and courts. And so where I talk, my suggestion of what I just did in the last 20 minutes, and we can certainly not do this and do something else, it looks like it might fit in that A1, where it says, the annual report regarding sports participation in the county, including, one, factors that affect sports participation in the county. And I was going to say there, it could say including the availability of access to athletic fields, facilities, and courts. But it's just something that captures that. I think it's really important. We've all talked about it, and I think putting it in the law to show that it's really important might make sense. But other than that, I'm really excited about this.
I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense, just speaking for me, because that's the intent, is for this group to help literally level the playing field in terms of access across our community, and where we have supply and demand issues, see if we can create more fields. I actually serendipitously this morning met with one of our local sports associations regarding an idea that they have to expand their campus that would significantly increase youth sports capacity in Montgomery County. And when they knew that we were going to be having this conversation this afternoon, and it's like one of the best first projects for this group to be able to consider supporting. It's not ready for prime time, but it just was sort of a general example that can help address some of those issues. Great. So, Ms. Wellens, we've done all the talking here, but thank you so much. I think you, as always, I saw you taking notes on some of the respective items before us. Were there any that I may have missed that we haven't enumerated yet?
I don't believe so, Mr. President, and thank you for being so comprehensive. I feel like you've done my part of the job. So,
Right.
I don't know if you want me to kind of walk through the issues, including the ones that were noted during the initial comments. Or
Yeah, why
how
don't
you
we
want
do
to
this?
proceed.
Actually, Ms. Clutter, if you want to say a couple of words on behalf of the Recreation Department, and then Ms. Carrizosa, if you want to give sort of a high-level summary of some of the findings you had in your analysis, that'd be helpful too, just for some context, and then we can kind of start going through those items one by one, and I think we can be out of here pretty quickly. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I believe the time is right, and we're excited about this. We know nationally there's an effort to bring grassroots sports back to Recreation Department for many reasons. We've all heard about the pay-to-play issues. I think the face of volunteerism has changed, and it has changed for some time now, and it's time that we address it. I think that I'm excited about this because Montgomery County can be on the cutting edge of making youth sports more equitable. And so I think the work is timely. One of our goals is always to outreach to the community, so having a structure in place that allows us to do that formally is a great thing. And I think the only thing that we're interested in probably getting clarification on is, in the spirit of the bill, we really believe that the community benefits model should have the heaviest weight. So making sure that we get clarification for those organizations who the seats are limited, can have seats on this commission, and so maybe hearing council's recommendation, and certainly the Recreation Department's willing to present a recommendation on maybe the number of ex officio, I would say private, for-profit, nonprofit, other community members, municipalities that should make up representation on this commission.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Carrizosa?
Hello. So in 2020, the council received and released OLO Report 2020-4, Youth Sports in Montgomery County. The purpose of the report was to review national research on youth sports and examine the youth sports landscape in Montgomery County. The overall finding in the report was that while there are affordable and recreational youth sports programs that are thriving in some parts of the county, youth sports provision overall is not well aligned with the needs of many families. And some of the examples that we heard from families that were barriers to them, to their kids participating, the transportation issue was really one of the high-level issues that came up. Available sports activities are too competitive, even at young ages. Cost was a significant barrier. Over a third of the respondents to the parent survey that we did reported paying over $2,000 annually for one child to play sports. And we also heard from families with disabilities that there are not sufficient opportunities for that group. So those are just some of the feedback that we heard from the survey. We also looked at kind of where participants are coming from in the county, and as you mentioned, There are, definite differences geographically in where folks are participating in sports. And that's kind of a high-level summary of some of the highlights from the report, but I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Why don't we start with the first motion where we left off with Councilmember Jawando, if you want to formally make that motion, which I support. Councilmember Jawando.
Sure, yes. So I would be moving to add, unless Ms. Wellens tells me a better place, okay, don't say, in 1A that we would add at the end of that clause, including the availability and access to athletic fields, facilities, and courts, which I think covers most things.
Moved by Councilmember Wanoj, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. I think without objection, that is unanimous.
Where is, it tells what line that is?
Yeah, go up 24.
And I just
Oh, yep, sorry.
want to know if there are other factors. I mean, these are really important, the availability of fields and facilities and courts. There are also other factors. Are there others we would like to enumerate?
Yeah, I mean, I put access in there because I think that covers a lot too, but open.
Including, right?
Yeah, including, not, yeah, not,
So it doesn't
yeah.
eliminate all the other factors, it's just
This is a real big one.
pulling those out
Yeah.
and highlighting them. So,
Access, I mean, I bet there's access would include the permitting process. and
Yeah.
things that-
Yeah, that'd fall under there.
Cost,
Yeah, transportation.
transportation.
I guess the one thing is quality of those surfaces and fields,
that's number two.
but it's in there.
Yeah, that's what I didn't say.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
opportunities and facilities.
So that's covered.
That's covered too.
Number 2 is recommendations to improve the quality,
Yeah.
quantity, and variety of opportunities and facilities in the
Yeah.
county. So,
And mine's availability and access, which is something we hear about a lot, like
Right.
I can't get it, or it's not there,
Right.
not enough. So they're complementary, I think.
that's good.
Okay, so yep, that one's unanimous. Next, let's just go to the overall name. I'd like to propose that rather than it be called the Montgomery County Sports Commission, that it be called the Montgomery County Sports Advisory Committee. Moved and seconded by Councilmember Rice. Any discussion? No? Without objection then. Next is the number of membership. Candidly, 23, it's just a coincidence that Michael Jordan has the same number. If we did go down to 17, Doug Williams may or may not have that same number as well. But I'd be fine moving down from 23 to 17. Is there any other discussion in terms of numbers? That's right, that's right.
Well, 21 was my high school football number,
That's
so
right.
you know,
That's right. But
13 and 44
Yeah.
across 55 and football.
17 is still a large number, but I also think, again, to Councilmember Rice's point, I want to make sure that we don't just have the larger participation sports included, but also an opportunity for the other sports that are out there as well. So is there any objection to from 23 to 17? Councilmember Rice.
No objection at all. And I mean, if we find that we need to increase, I mean, it's certainly something we can amend, right, Ms. Wellens, at any point in time and
Yeah.
say, we need to
Absolutely.
add on additional folks because we've realized, and so it's easier that way, I think, also.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So without objection then from 23 to 17.
And then were you going to raise the question of the either ex officio or institutional memberships?
Yes. So we enumerated several colleagues from county agencies that we think should be included. I'll enumerate them again just for purposes of a motion, and then we can discuss whether they're ex officio or voting. But they should include a representative from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the Department of Recreation, the Community Use for Public Facilities, a municipal entity, the Montgomery College, Montgomery County Public Schools,
Was Revenue Authority?
and the Revenue Authority.
Okay, and there was also discussion of a fields expert, but that wouldn't necessarily be an ex officio. I don't know if,
I think it could be parks. I think
Okay.
parks could be
Okay.
seen.
Yeah,
Swap clip in there.
right.
Exactly.
That's right. Okay. And then the question is, should they be ex officio or voting? I'm agnostic on this. I
Mr.
think,
President? Oh,
yes.
I just wanted to add, so they could be, both ex officio and voting, if
Okay.
you'd like to do that. Just wanted to put that out there as another option.
That seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, Council Vice President Glass.
I think the nature of the body itself being advisory, they should be ex officio because otherwise they'd be voting to advise themselves vis-a-vis. So.
Sorry, and just to clarify, ex officio non-voting, because technically
Yeah.
ex officio could be voting or not. Ex officio non-voting. I also think the purpose of this is to hear from the community.
Yep.
To Council Vice President Glass's points, I think having their expertise there is important, but
Yep.
hearing from the community and the stakeholders is the most important aspect of this.
So the motion would be advancing the county agencies that have been enumerated and being ex officio non-voting. I would like to move that. Is there a second? Moved by moved by me, seconded by Councilmember Joando. Any objections? No objections. So by acclamation. Ms. Wellens, was that one clear?
Yes, very clear, and just to further clarify, so that I get it right, so we still have that there will be 17 voting members, and in
Yes.
addition, we have these ex officio
Correct.
non-voting.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Was there anything else, Ms. Mullins? Nope.
I
Ms.
don't
Clutter.
believe so unless Ms. Clutter has
Ms. Clutter.
additional points.
I do think that we should consider clarification for the 17 voting members. I'd hate to see that if it inadvertently got lopsided for-profit versus non-profit. And so I would look for a recommendation from council as to maybe deciding on how many for-profit and non-profit entities hold voting seats.
Rather than a specific number, we tried in a catch-all. There's a paragraph that talks about, and you'll have to help me find it, Ms. Wellens, but there's a paragraph where we tried to capture the diversity in sport, generation,
Yeah, it's
gender.
Mine's
4126 on lines 8 through 17.
I think we can
Bill.
specifically enumerate balance in for-profit versus nonprofit.
Okay.
But I'd rather do that than give a specific number, because you never know.
So I would just suggest at the end of B on line 13, we just say, and sports represented, comma, including nonprofit and for-profit, or equitable distribution of nonprofit and for-profit,
Yeah.
something of that nature.
I like that.
Could we add the Sports Hall? We add the Sports Hall of Fame as an ex officio non-voting?
That's a good idea. So there are two motions there. Councilmember Friedson, could you enumerate the motion that you would like to put forward?
Yeah, under 4126 of the drafted bill on B, line 13, and sports represented, comma, including for-profit and nonprofit.
Moved by Councilmember Friedson, seconded by Councilmember Rice. No objections. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember.
Adrian, can you just talk to us, you're seeking equitable representation, I think, for nonprofit sports. You seem to be concerned that it could evolve in a way not to provide that. Can you expand on this a little bit? Of the seats, is there, how would you want to see that expressed?
Yeah, sure. I think what I'm seeing in other places, and just from my experience, is that the for-profit organizations tend to have a loud voice. And they are, for whatever reason, position themselves well in, for example, in Cuff Board and other places. And we want to make sure that it's balanced. I think sometimes a smaller nonprofit organization, when we talk about access to fields and other things, they tend to lose out. And not that, I think both are important, both need to be represented, but I think in the spirit of this bill, with the recreational level opportunity, that we need many of the nonprofits fill the gap there. And for-profits organizations do as well, but have that community-wide benefit. We're not seeing their voice as strong in certain places, and so it was just my concern that when it's time to apply to be on the Sports Commission, that that we would get a overwhelmingly for-profit number of applications. We're certainly going to do everything we can do to get the word out to make sure all the organizations have the opportunity to apply to be on the commission and be represented. But just, I guess, a concern from what I'm seeing in other places and spaces.
I think the language as proposed sounds good. Thanks.
Great. And then, Councilmember, would you make a motion to add the additional?
Yes, move to add the Montgomery County Sports Hall of Fame to the ex officio non-voting members.
Without objection? Without objection. Great. I think that is it. Is that right, Ms. Mullins?
Excellent, I believe so. Very efficient. I have all the amendments recorded, and we'll put them into the final version.
Awesome. I'll end with this. Just prior to the pandemic, I came this close to being able to organize a soccer game between the council versus members of our General Assembly. And with representatives from the community helping round out both teams, I am resurrecting that. And I think it would be pretty cool if we did something along these lines to help launch this. And we will make sure EMTs are available to take care of anybody that gets hurt. So that's right. That's right. That's right. So, but this is really exciting and momentous, and I think is going to have an impact long term in our community for generations to come. Councilmember Reamer.
Ms. Clutter, can you just give us an update on the rollout of the Her Time to Shine and other initiatives that have been funded for the current year as we head into summer?
Absolutely. So we're excited to say that we've got our first volleyball league started in the East County and the Up County. And modest start. We're trying to do it quickly, but we do have 48 young people, young women registered at East County Community Center. So for volleyball, that's exciting. We're looking at bringing softball to Good Hope Community Center. We have, I don't remember the number, but we also have a volleyball league started at the Upper County Community Center. So we're off to a swift start, and we have a lot to look forward to. We're diving in, literally, offering a lot of free swimming opportunities and trying to recruit and get more young people involved in our recreation level swimming programs. We know our RMSC swimming programs are always super popular, so we're trying to get that entry level start going for the summer. We are putting new skateboard ramps in at the Damascus Community Recreation Center, and so we're looking forward to that. We had our first all-girls skateboard class there, and it was awesome. And so we're building momentum, and we expect this to grow. We want to thank you, too, for the opportunity to participate in the 50th anniversary of Title IX, near and dear to my heart. I just spoke with a woman the other night who's about mid-60s, 65, 66 years old, still playing in our women's recreational soccer league, and did not have the opportunity to play otherwise as a young person. So she's an avid supporter of Title IX, just expressed her sincere gratitude to the council and for the opportunity to play that she didn't have until she was an adult playing here in Montgomery County. So we're off to a great start.
Councilmember Jawando, followed by Councilmember Rice.
Just very quickly, so Ms. Clutter, I just want to let you know I have 4 young women who are ready to sign up for your volleyball. My daughter's been looking for it as she approaches 5'10", and I told her she needs to get involved and engaged. So we have 4 young ladies who will be reaching out to you to sign up for that team. So that'll be great. This is exactly what I'm talking about why, again, we know the great work that you guys are doing, because it speaks to, again, there's so many of those sports out there that, again, for our girls and then girls of color, that to be able to give and provide them opportunities, and they typically don't get to see that, is just tremendous and game-changing. So I can't tell you how happy I am right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Jawando.
Couldn't agree more, and just want to thank you for the access, the availability. Just signed up my daughter for the summer Coach Parker's basketball camp again, and there's plenty of spots. And to the point of the cost issue, you guys have just done a great job of, it's not free, but keeping the cost in a relative reasonable range for parents and families. So just want to thank you. Glad to hear all that excitement, and you can comment on that, but just wanted to acknowledge it.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to just say thank you for your support, because one of the things that we've been able to do that I didn't mention was lower the fees. So our volleyball programs, a lot of our programs before, and Council President's familiar with this, operated out of our non-tax supported fund, which caused us to have higher fees. But when we are able to subsidize these opportunities and lower fees and make them more accessible, it's just really great for our community. So we're certainly excited about that.
Amen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really good stuff cooking. Councilmember Reamer's been working with all of us on the Emery Grove property, which is coming. So this is really exciting. Good things are happening in Montgomery County, everybody. All right, thank you all very much. With that, we are adjourned.